Hi, Karen. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, David. It's nice to be here again today.
Hey, I'm excited to share this topic today. And we're going to learn about why you believe that your husband is the problem in your marriage. How does that sound? Or-
Very familiar.
Okay, sounds familiar.
Yeah.
So, my name is David Cope, and I'm the founder of a new life center. And I got involved in relationships uh, because I got divorced in the year 2000. And one thing that became very important to me was to have a loving and intimate relationship with another woman. And I worked really hard reading a lot of books and trying to take seminars, and finally realized that the answers weren't in the books or the seminars. They're really within me. And that in order to have a loving and intimate relationship with somebody else, it had to start with me first. So I took this program is a result of probably 15 years of research and study and how to develop a relationship with yourself, because true intimacy, authentic intimacy starts with building a relationship with yourself. So, Karen, can you talk a little bit about you and your background? And
Can. I'm Karen Seitz, and I'm the lead teacher for the relationship program at a new life center. And I have been training in this work and applying it in my own life and teaching it to others and to my clients for almost 4 years. And by doing so, I have completely shifted my own marriage and turned it around in ways that I really did not think were possible. And that's what I teach my clients to do day in and day out, just by working on themselves. And like David said, building a relationship with yourself is where things begin to change and where we build intimacy within ourselves and in our lives and relationships.
thank you.
Of
So
course.
today the title is about why you blame your husband for being the problem in your marriage. And the central core issue that causes a woman, or if on a man's perspective, why would blame his wife for being the problem? But the reason why women blame their husbands for being the problem in their marriage is something that we've worked with at a new life center for over 15 years, is the concept of being a victim. And we're going to talk about that fundamental concept that we all experience as human beings. One of the manuals that I wrote in the grief and loss program we developed and trained therapists, fundamental to healing yourself from grief and loss is understanding being a victim. And in the manual, this is what I wrote. I said, a general note: a victim mentality or victim complex is generally classified by mainstream psychology as a non-normative behavior. In other words, a behavioral issue that is uncommonly seen among healthy people. However, at a new life center, our research has demonstrated the victim mentality is pervasive in human experience. And the reason the victim mentality has gone undetected as a pervasive human behavior is because the essential nature of feeling like a victim is the lack of self-awareness. Karen, can you talk about how being a victim causes a woman in her marriage to lack self-awareness, and how the mind seeks to see things externally as the cause of how we experiencing ourselves?
Absolutely. The the very nature of being a victim is so that we do not have to look at ourselves and see that we're the problem. That as a victim, I see everything as happening to me, and it's all outside of me. That I'm blaming something or someone else for the experience that I'm having, and that comes up in a marriage and a relationship just almost naturally because it becomes so easy to put everything that I'm experiencing in myself, whether that's how I feel bad about myself, the things I think I'm not getting from my husband, or the things I'm not getting from my relationship. It is just central to my nature, because I have a mind to want to blame my husband or blame my marriage for why I'm having those experiences. And the reason for that isn't, it was challenging for me to see this in myself at first, because I thought being a victim was bad or wrong, or there's something defective about me, that I had a victim mentality. And now I know that it's just very natural to who I am as a human, and having a mind to react to my external world by being a victim, because I don't want to change. I don't want to be exposed. And I don't want to face emotional pain or discomfort. So going into victim and blaming my husband or my marriage for the problems I'm having puts this protective wall up around me, so that I don't have to, again, be exposed or change or see or face emotional discomfort.
Thank you, Karen. Could you describe the three central core issues that we at A New Life Center makes the fundamental issues that we're trying to share with our audience, and how that makes us different from everybody else there, and how the victim mentality plays into each one of those three items?
Sure. So our 3 focus points that this whole group and our program is centered around is that, 1, you are responsible for your happiness, that nothing and no one can make you happy. It has to come from within yourself. And that the only person you have any control over to change is yourself. You can't change your husband or your in-laws or anyone else in your life. If you want to experience yourself differently, you have to change yourself. And the third is that authentic intimacy is actually about your relationship that you have with yourself, and learning to feel good about yourself. And the opposite of those 3 things, wanting someone to make me happy or be responsible for my happiness, wanting to change my husband or somebody else to change my experience, and wanting intimacy to be about my relationship with my husband, or what he gives me or provides for me in the relationship, all come from a place of victim and not wanting to take responsibility for my happiness. It's putting everything outside of me.
Okay, so the first one was no, in a sense, nobody can make you happy. Your husband can't make you happy. You have to be responsible for your own happiness. And what happens when we become a victim, the mind says and projects onto a husband that he is the source of our unhappiness. And in order for me to be happy, he has to change. The moment that your mind tells you the story that in order for me to be happy, my husband has to change, is fundamentally being a victim, which means I'm not taking responsibility for the things that I do that causes my husband to act and behave in the way he is. And the mind is very tricky. It actually tells us little lies to convince us that our husband is the problem. And of course, we know the second thing is that it's pretty clear for most adults that we can't change anybody. We only change ourselves. But again, the way the mind is so tricky is it convinces us, no, you don't understand my husband. If you knew my husband, you would know that he would have to change in order for me to be happy, and to have the life and the marriage that I always dreamed with. That tricky nature of the mind, which is convincing you that your husband needs to change, is being a victim. Meaning, I think my husband has to change in order for the marriage to get better. So taking responsibility and not being a victim is recognizing and being true to yourself in a very adult way. Is the only person I can change is myself. The only person I have responsibility and capacity to change is me. And when you make that flip, you go from being a victim, blaming your husband and thinking he's the source of your unhappiness, to taking responsibility and empowering yourself to change yourself in order to change the behavior of your husband. And the third one is intimacy. One of the biggest issues that women have in marriage is the lack of intimacy and feeling that their husbands are distant or aloof, or they're not emotionally attuned with them, or it's like talking to a brick wall. When we blame our husbands for the lack of intimacy in our marriage, we're being a victim. And when you take responsibility for the intimacy that you're not providing for yourself, that you're wanting your husband to give to you, you empower yourself to take responsibility for your own intimacy within yourself. And the beauty of all of this is when we shift from being a victim in a relationship to taking responsibility, it empowers the relationship to change. Karen, can you talk about why being a victim makes somebody, or a woman in this case, in a marriage powerless to change and causes them to feel trapped in the marriage with no way out? It's a really sneaky thing that the mind does. It really convinces us absolutely that it's my husband that's the problem, and if he would change, things would be different. But
Yeah.
can you explain why being a victim makes you powerless to change and causes women to feel that trapped nature and like there's no way out and there's no solution to their problem?
And it, for me, when I first started looking at this and myself coming into the program at a New Life Center, it was so hard to see myself as a victim and how much I blamed my husband for all of our problems and what I was experiencing, because I had really convinced myself that I had done all this work and that I had changed and I was taking responsibility. And it's him that he's the one that's not changing and doing his work, and I'm the one pulling all the weight. And I really had convinced myself of that. But the truth is, nothing had changed because I wasn't changing in a real way, because I didn't want to. I really wanted my husband to be the one to change, for the problems in my marriage to go away. That's how tricky and insidious victim is. The point of it is so that I do feel trapped and like I can't change. I want to be powerless in my experience so that I don't have to look at myself and face my own issues.
Yeah.
Plus, if things really changed in my marriage, then I was going to have to show up with my walls down and be vulnerable and let my husband in. So victim was this perfect way to put my walls up around myself and not have to let my husband in and have that close, intimate relationship, because I didn't want to get hurt.
So it's interesting, Karen. I hear you saying, as from a woman's perspective, the very thing that they want from their husband is the very thing they're afraid to be exposed to.
Yeah.
And that being a victim helps prevent us from having to look at ourselves and to see what we're lacking within us. So the mind projects onto our husband as the source of our unhappiness. But a woman, in your experience with women, working with women, they're afraid to be intimate and to be open themselves, and terrified to be engaged in their marriage and to be happy. And they, at some level, they want to be trapped.
Yeah. I know it sounds crazy, but that's it. That was my experience. I had the perfect sounding story. I want the intimacy. I want the closeness. When in reality, I didn't, because that was going to push me to show up in my marriage in ways that exposed me and made me vulnerable to getting hurt or not being accepted or not being approved of. These are all the stories I had in my head of what would happen if I actually had an intimate relationship.
And you find the same thing with working with all the women that you work over the years, It's
all of them.
not a Karen thing, that this is a very common issue with women.
Not a Karen thing at all. I see this with all of my clients, and when they're willing to break through that story that they really do, that they want an intimate relationship and see the truth of their experience, all of them get to that place of seeing how terrified and how scared they are to actually let their walls down and do the work to have that close, intimate relationship. And they're able to articulate that and be honest about the fact of how scary that is to them.
So at a New Life Center, our relationship program is based upon 10 to 15 years of research and study of how the mind works and creates these patterns of behavior. And it's quite interesting to realize that the very thing that women seek and crave in their marriage is the very thing that they're most afraid of about themselves. And what we've learned over the years of our research and study is that the first thing is that that's normal. And if you're, as a woman watching this, you should know that everything you're experiencing is normal, and there's millions of other women having the same issues and concerns that you are. But the reason why, as a woman, and men have their own issues and have different types of issues, but the reason why women, we found in our research and study, put walls up around them to protect their heart is because the mind convinces them, if I let my walls down and let my husband in and be intimate with him, I will get hurt. And we as humans, we've been hurt so many times over our life that we slowly close our hearts off and build these walls around us so that we don't let people in, because we're so afraid of the pain of being hurt that we do everything we can to keep everybody at a distance, including our husbands and family members, because we don't want to let them into our heart because we're so afraid that we're going to be hurt. So one of the things we learn at a New Life Center and in our relationship program is how to safely and consciously let your walls down so that you can let your husband in and be intimate with him and allow yourself to share that relationship with yourself. Because when we put up walls, we're really walling ourselves off from the outside world. We think we're protecting ourselves from the outside wall, but we're really walling ourselves off, and we never really engage in life in a really meaningful and authentic way. And at a New Life Center in our relationship program, when we teach intimacy, the fundamental thing that is important is to open our hearts and to feel safe and know that being hurt and in relationships and have pain in life is a normal human experience that we need to learn to be comfortable. And that's really the foundation that intimacy truly begins at.
Yeah, I know for me that it's been a challenge to normalize hurt and getting hurt in relationships, because in wanting to protect myself, I live in this fantasy of thinking that I should never be hurt by anyone in a relationship. And that fantasy is completely unrealistic. I've had to learn for myself. And one of the things I teach my clients that is the basis of intimacy is knowing who I am and having the willingness to show up as myself, even if it risks the relationship. So one of the things that I've had to see in normalizing hurt is that sometimes we get hurt or feel hurt just because someone's being themselves. And sometimes I might hurt my partner by showing up as me and doing what I need to do for myself. And it's that willingness to work through that and normalize it, and knowing there was no intent to hurt, that allows us to move through that and very quickly, so that we're not holding on to that in the relationship, which affects everything. And that's where what I had to see is that's where all my problems stemmed from, was from being a victim and blaming and hiding from hurt. It was when I opened my heart up to that and was willing to normalize it and work through those things, that the problems in my marriage began to resolve and go away.
That's exactly right. Thank you. When we recognize ourselves as a victim, and it's important, the message in this broadcast is that every human experiences themselves as a victim. The key is to catch ourselves in it. And the mind is very sneaky and tricky and wants us to convince us that the outside world, those around us, is the source of how we're feeling about ourselves. But when we catch ourselves as being a victim, we can switch that. And in switching that, it empowers us to make the change within us, that knowing that I am the source of my unhappiness. The only person that I can change is myself. And then to have an intimate relationship, I must change and have a connection with myself. When we're victims, we are powerless to change because the source is always outside of us, that somebody else or something is causing me to have this experience that I have. And when you're trapped in a victim mentality in a relationship, it's why you feel trapped in your marriage, is because you believe that the source of what's happening to you is outside of you, meaning your husband. And when that is the experience that you're having internally, that you believe that nothing can change unless that which is around you changes. What that does is it causes you to be powerless to change. And that's the problem of being a victim, is that we see everything else as the problem. And of course, we know that we have no capacity to change anything other than ourselves. So that's why we feel like our husband is always the problem in our marriage, because being a victim causes us to lack self-awareness that we are the source of our own unhappiness, because the mind is so sneaky and tricky. So Karen, can you just kind of do a quick wrap up and for us, for
Sure.
our audience, and about this
Yeah.
very important topic that's central to a New Life Center's relationship program, is the work on being a victim, which really makes it different than anything else that we're familiar that it's out there as a fundamental piece of our program.
It makes it so different because in different modalities, we're looking at like couples counseling or marriage therapy, where we're looking at what does my partner need to do to make me happy or to fix these things. And that makes us powerless. So what we're really talking about today is that if you want to move forward, if you want to see long-lasting, permanent change in your life, you have to be willing to see that you are the problem. Not to beat yourself up, not to make yourself wrong or bad, but so that you can actually empower yourself to be the solution, because that's the only place that change comes from. And I know that this is a big, big concept, a big topic. Like David said, victim mentality and working on that and learning to take responsibility is the central aspect of the work that we do. So I know we'll be talking about this more and expanding on it more. This is just giving you that opportunity to see things from a new perspective that you might not be able to see because you're trapped in victim mentality and there's no awareness in this. So this is just starting to see, okay, where am I placing the blame, and how is that actually completely disempowering me to do anything about the problems that I continue to face in my marriage again and again and again and again. If you're facing those problems again and again and again and again, then it's showing you that you're a victim to your experience and that you're powerless. So if you're ready to break out of that and do something different and see the lasting changes that you want, then we have a program that can absolutely help you transform and solve the problems in your marriage. And if you're committed to yourself and ready to take that leap, then I'm here waiting to have a 45-minute breakthrough call with you to see if we're a good fit and walk beside you as you learn these things and transform your life. So if you're ready for that, please private message me and we'll get something set up. And I hope to hear from you.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate your time. It's lovely to share this with you each time we do this,
Really nice.
because I know that you're a true teacher, that you live the teachings and you're practicing them in your life, in your marriage. And that's really important at a New Life Center, that everybody here actually lives the teaching, and it's very important that our teachers are true teachers, and they can do the things and practice them themselves. So thank you,
Thank you.
Karen. Hope everybody has a lovely rest of their day, and thank you for your time.
All right.
Bye
Thank you.
bye.
See you.